Okay, so in the last video we had a while loop, and it went through several iterations to compute a problem like this. What is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, and so on, and we could go up as high as we'd want to. And you might be wondering, that while loop was kind of tricky. Why would we want to work with a while loop when I could have just typed out this code in a few seconds and been done with it? Well, the answer is that when you're writing programs, a lot of times your programs have to respond to user input in some way. So the program is somewhat limited if you have to be typing in these numbers every time. The program would be a lot better if the user could say what they wanted to calculate. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to change this to be more dynamic, and we're going to do more than just inputting this maximum value to go up to. We're going to be inputting all sorts of things. So we're going to start with this, though. What is that top number we're going to go up to? And so the first thing we're going to need to do is to import the keyboard reader class. So import terminal IO, and that's the terminal IO package .keyboard reader. Keyboard reader. And if we have that line in, now we can create a keyboard reader. So I'm going to type at the very beginning of my main method, I'll type keyboard reader, and I'll just call it reader equals new keyboard reader. And now I will have a keyboard reader object that I can use, and that'll help me figure out what I want these values to be. Some will always start at 0, but let's figure out what we want to be that maximum value, where the 7 is here. And I'm gonna declare that as an int, and I'll call it maximum. And instead of initializing it to a value, let's allow the user to input a value. So what I'm going to do is maximum equals reader.readInt, and readInt is the name of the message or the name of the method that we're going to be using, and that will pop up the little nice input box for the user to input the number they want to use. Now down here in my while loop, I'm going to change this 7 to be maximum. Okay, let's compile the program, and I'm going to change my compiler to the Eclipse compiler. So if you have multiple compilers here, just for now make sure you're using the Eclipse compiler. Okay, so the little box when I run my program pops up. Well, how many do I want to go up to? Let's do 5 for now. Okay, and the answer is 10. And so what it did for me is it did 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 and gave me the answer 10. But really, I'd like, if I type in 5, it'd be kind of nice if it did 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So let's edit the code right here. So instead of less than maximum, I'm going to change that to less than or equal to maximum. Compile and run it again. I'm going to type in the same thing. I'll type in 5, and this time it gave me the answer of 15, because now as it iterated through this while loop, instead of iterating through 4 times, or enough to, instead of just doing 1, 2, 3, 4, it also did 1 last time, so I could add another number on. But let's say this isn't quite enough for us. This is a nice, useful program, but we want to do even more with it. And let's say that instead of incrementing the counter by 1, what if we decided we wanted to increment it by some larger value than 1? And maybe we wanted to increment it by 2 every time through the loop, or maybe 3 every time through the loop. Well, we can do that. Let's do that dynamically as well. So I'm going to create another int. I'll declare it up here at the top after maximum, int, and I'll call it increment. Okay, now I'll set the value of the increment variable the same way I did this maximum. Increment equals reader.readInt. And now it's probably going to be kind of confusing for the user because they're not going to even know what they're supposed to input. So I'll help them out a little bit by giving them a message. I'll do that in both of these. So I'll say in this one, please, or I'll not even, I don't need to be that nice, I'll just say maximum. And I will say in this one, increment. And I'll just assume that the user will know what those things mean. Okay, so it's asking for the maximum. In this case, I'm going to put in 10. And for my increment, I'm going to do 2. Now, before I press enter again, let's see if we can step through the program to figure out what it's going to do. Notice that if this, and I didn't even change the increment here, so this whole thing that I typed out is pointless actually, because I didn't actually use it. So I'm going to reset everything here, and I'm going to, instead of this adding 1 to the counter every time through the loop, I'm going to do counter equals counter plus increment. That was the whole point of me doing that. So now I will compile it, and now I will run it, and maximum is 10 and increment is 2. But now before I do it, let's see if we can step through the loop. So to start off with, the counter is 0. So the first time through the loop, it's comparing, well, the maximum would be 10. So counter is less than or equal to 10, yes. So let's go through the loop. Well, sum starts out to be 0. So we have 0 plus whatever the counter is, in this case 0. So the sum is going to be 0 after the first time through. But then the counter, instead of doing counter plus 1, now it's counter plus increment. And increment is 2, so counter will move from being 0 to 0 plus 2 is 2. So go back up to the top of the loop. Now counter is 2. Is 2 less than or equal to maximum? Yes. So now we're going to do sum plus counter. The counter is now 2. So 0 plus 2 is 2. And that value will get saved as the sum. And now we're going to increment the counter again. It jumps from 2 now to 4. So the next time through the loop, counter is 4. Is 4 less than or equal to 10? Yes. So now sum equals sum plus counter. Well, sum was 2. Now it's going to be 2 plus 4. So now the sum will be 6. And I'm not going to keep track of all of this in my head. Let's see what the computer gives us. But if we track what counter gets increased to every time, well, it's going to, it was 2, then it was 4. Now it's going to be 6 after this time through the loop. Next time through the loop it'll be 8. And the next time through it will be 10. And after it gets to 10, it'll come up here and it'll look at this condition. Well, is 10 less than or equal to 10? Yes, it is. So it'll go through one more time, and then it will increment to 12. But now that when it's 12 and it goes back up and checks the condition, well, now 12 is not less than or equal to maximum. So now we're done. We're not going to go through the while loop again. We're going to jump down here out of the while loop to this final piece of code. So let's test it. My code is still running. I'll press enter, and it gave me 30. And let's just check mentally if that's correct. And I'm going to bring out another Word document, and let's just check ourselves to see if this worked the same way we thought it did. I'm going to just delete everything in these, delete all of these cells, and just start fresh. So first it was 0, 0. Next time the loop, the counter was 2, the sum was still 0. Next time through the loop, and again I'm looking at the very beginning of the loop what was the sum. So after the first time through the loop the counter got incremented to 2, but then the sum was still 0. Next time through the counter is 4, and the sum is 2. And the next time through the loop the counter is 6, and the sum is 4 plus 2 is 6. Next time through the loop, the counter is 8, and the sum is 12, because 6 plus 6 is 12. And next time through the loop, the counter is 10, and the sum is 20. So I arrived at a different answer than expected. Let's see if we can figure out why. Well, in the answer is that it would go through the loop one more time. Because when the counter is 10, okay, the counter is 10, it still evaluates to true. So we're going to go through the loop one last time, and sum will be sum plus counter. So counter plus sum, there we go, it's 30. So the sum will be 30. And then after that, that'll be the last trip through the loop, the last iteration, and now we're ready to print out the sum, and it's at 30. So it makes sense. Let's try a smaller one and check to see if it still works. So I'm going to click Run. And now my maximum, I'm going to just try up to 5. And I'm going to make the increment 2 again. Okay, and it tells me 6. Well, let's take a look. If the maximum amount was 5, well then this would be the last trip through the loop. The last time that the condition would evaluate to true would be when counter is 4. And then on that last trip through the loop, sum would be 2 plus 4, which would give me 6.